Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. Let's start with the latest developments. The United States does not exclude the use of energy as weapon by Russia. This was stated by the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at a joint press conference with his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba. He said that the United States is following the actions of the Kremlin. At the same time, the secretary does not believe that Russia could use gas as weapon. Blinken reminded that there is a joint statement by the United States and Germany on Nord Stream 2. It goes about energy security and efforts to strengthen Ukraine's position. The Ukrainian foreign minister disagreed with his American counterpart and said that Kremlin is already using gas as weapon.
What we're looking at is to see whether Russia uses the energy that it has in its capacity positively, or whether it seeks again to weaponize it. And as I noted, it's said that it has sufficient supply to meet European energy needs, working through on gas the existing pipeline with Ukraine. So if it actually does what it says, that can make a real difference in alleviating concerns. If it doesn't, that would certainly be evidence of the concern we have of weaponizing energy.
What we see is that Russia is already using gas as a weapon. And I can only echo what Secretary Blinken said. We are looking forward to seeing actions taken by Germany, because Germany has a leverage on Russia. And the commitments undertaken in the joint U.S.-German statement are very clear. And we are ready to work with them, or they can act on their own. But Russia should receive a very strong message, not only from the United States and from other capitals, but also from Berlin, that this is not the game that will benefit Russia.
Ukraine and the United States have signed the new Charter on Strategic Partnership. This document determines in what directions the relations between the countries will develop in the next 10 years. The document reinforces U.S. support for Ukraine's NATO and EU aspirations and presupposes expansion of bilateral cooperation to enhance security in the Black Sea region and strengthen energy security. At the same time, the United States will also provide military assistance to Ukraine, including lethal defense weapons. Antony Blinken assured that the United States and its allies will react to Russia's activity near the borders with Ukraine. Moreover, the support for the sovereignty of Ukraine from the American side remains unchanged. One should place migrants from Belarus in Germany. Alexei Danilov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, offered the German Social Democrats from the Bundestag to do so. So he commented on their statement to use Ukraine as a temporary refuge for migrants from the Middle East who are trying to break into the EU from Belarus. In turn, Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, Denis Monastyrskyy, said that border guards, national guards and the police will serve not only at the border itself, but also in the border areas.
We have an offer for the Social Democrats to take them home. Let's say 2, 3, 5 persons each. If there are offices in the Bundestag, let them stay there. Why should we place them in Ukraine if the Germans should take care of them? It is very strange when the Germans start telling us what to do. We do not exclude the possibility of such a scenario in relation to the Ukrainian border as well. Therefore, the answer and reaction of the Ukrainian law enforcement officers will be quite tough, clear and correct. Everything will be done within the framework of the law regulating the protection of the state border.
The situation on the Belarus-Poland border escalated on November 8th. Several southern migrants from the Middle East tried to break into the territory of the European Union. Polish border guards used tear gas. At the same time, riots broke out in the refugee camps in Lithuania. European leaders called the issue a political one and accused Alexander Lukashenko of creating the crisis. The record number of ceasefire violations along the contact line in Donbas since July of 2020 was recorded in the last week of October by the OSCE. This was announced by Special Representative of the Chairman in Office of the organization in Ukraine, Ambassador Mikko Kinnunen. According to him, weapons prohibited by the Minsk agreements have been used, and the number of violations of the freedom of movement of the Special Monitoring Mission's representatives has also increased.
The presence and use of weapon systems prohibited by mutual obligations raises concerns in view of the risk of further escalation. I'm concerned about the recent increase in difficulties that the Special Monitoring Mission is facing while carrying out its mandate. The number of restrictions on the SMM's freedom of movement has increased. The mission reports 37 cases of restrictions on freedom of movement in the past 2 weeks. Mikko Kinnunen, Special Representative of the OSCE Chairperson in Office in Ukraine and in the Trilateral Contact Group.
2 months in custody without the right to be released on bail. This decision was made by the Primorsky District Court of Mariupol City of Donetsk region in relation to Denis Kulikovsky, nicknamed Polish, the former commandant of Izolyatsia prison, located in the city of Donetsk, temporarily not controlled by Ukraine. More details about this person and his fate in the following report.
He's a sadist. Nothing more to say, he's a sadist.
Oleg Kulakov is a former prisoner of the Izolyatsia prison. The man personally came to court to hear about the preventive measure applied for his offender Denis Kulikovsky. However, he was not allowed into the building itself. This was explained by quarantine restrictions. Oleg says that he would not be able to look into the eyes of the notorious Polish anyway, since he has almost completely lost his sight due to inhuman tortures in an underground prison.
I've lost not only sight, broken ribs heal quickly. I suffered daily beatings. This is a standard deal for him in general. While one has been assigned to sweep the floor, one sweeps it. He used to approach with the butt of a machine gun and hit in the back.
The court hearing itself lasted 3 hours. It took the judge the same amount of time to decide on the measure of restraint for Polish.
Preventive measure in the form of detention provided by the investigation of the State Security Service of Ukraine located in Kyiv is applied for a period of 60 days. That is until the 7th of January 2022.
They also gave the floor to the defendant. He pleaded guilty, and he himself asked for custody for his own safety. He also said that he has been living in Kyiv since 2019. The media have recently published information that Kulikovsky and the State Security Service of Ukraine had allegedly had a cooperation deal. The security service refutes the allegation.
He could not conclude any agreements with the Security Service of Ukraine. Personally, he didn't make any deals with me. It's 100%. If he had concluded the appropriate agreements, I think he would have never been detained. Given the secrecy of the pre-trial investigation, we cannot go into certain details in order to effectively complete this investigation.
Denis Kulikovsky was detained the day before in Kyiv by officers of the State Security Service. The Donetsk region police identified more than 160 victims who were illegally held in the Izolyatsia prison. More than 50 of them gave testimony about the tortures carried out by Kulikovsky personally. For these crimes, he faces from 8 to 15 years in prison with confiscation of property or life imprisonment. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Alexander Belov, UATV News.
97% of Ukrainian homes are connected to heating supply. This was announced by Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. According to him, the Ukrainian gas storage facilities are full. There will be enough natural gas for domestic use. More than 95% of schools, kindergartens and medical institutions are provided with heating as well. And tariffs will not increase during the heating season, since keeping the price is the responsibility of the Cabinet of Ministers and local authorities.
The beginning of heating season in Ukraine is accompanied by a large number of manipulations about the alleged increase in gas prices, the lack of gas in storage facilities, and power outages. Tariffs in November for gas, heat, hot water and electricity do not grow, and they will not grow till the end of the heating season.
The energy crisis is not in Ukraine but in the world. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated this in a video message. He said that the situation in our country is stable. The Ukrainian government is doing everything possible. According to him, they managed to keep tariffs at the level of 2020 and they will not change until the end of heating season. At the same time, Volodymyr Zelenskyy warned oligarchic structures against creating an artificial shortage of energy resources in Ukraine.
Every year in winter and autumn, some oligarchic structures start a game called an artificial deficit. It is very simple. News appear about the shortage of coal and gas and about the growing demand. I'm sure one should not start this game this year. When the state runs out of angelic patience, someone's likely to face a hellish period.
More than 20 million vaccines against COVID-19 have already been administered in Ukraine. Since the start of the vaccination campaign, almost 8,300,000 Ukrainians have undergone the full course. Meanwhile, more than 24,500 citizens fell ill with COVID over the past day. In order to counter the spread of the disease, the Ministry of Health decided to expand the list of specialists for whom vaccination is mandatory.
We are talking about employees of state and communal healthcare institutions, employees of local self-government bodies, employees of enterprises, institutions and organizations belonging to the communal property of the respective territorial communities. At present, there are more than 10 million doses of vaccines from different manufacturers available in Ukraine. They are approved by the World Health Organization. They are safe and effective for emergency use. Everyone who received the first dose of the vaccine in Ukraine will surely receive the second jab.
Ukraine's national police does not check coronavirus vaccination documents in the streets. This was assured by Internal Affairs Minister Monastyrskyy. According to him, the control is performed in public places and transport only. The legality of checks of COVID certificates was confirmed by head of the board of the Center for Civil Liberties, human rights activist Oleksandra Matveychuk.
No street checks are carried out by the national police. The documents are checked on buses, trains, at food outlets, restaurants, etc. Well, if we are talking about the organized mass events, concerts, etc., there can also be a corresponding verification of certificates.
The government can impose additional responsibilities on business entities. According to Article 29 of the law Ukraine on the prevention of infectious diseases, it can restrict the rights of individuals and legal entities and impose additional obligations. Therefore, the administrations of restaurant, gyms, as well as people walking in the metro and on public transport have the right to demand visitors to show a COVID certificate. Ukrainians can change their residence registration in the passport using the Diia State Services application. This service will also be available to holders of paper passports. In the application, one needs to indicate the address where the person actually lives and receive confirmation from the owner of the property. It will be possible to confirm the place of registration using an online extract at the portal. At present, changing the place of residence registration online is available for ID card holders in 7 cities of Ukraine. The legendary state-owned research and production enterprise ELEKTRONMASH is up for sale. The electronic auctions to be held on November 12th. The starting price of the lot is 66 million hryvnias. That is a little more than $2.5 million. The main asset of the enterprise is a land plot on the outskirts of Kyiv with an area of over 13 hectares. Our journalists found out why have they decided to transfer the industrial giant into private hands and what it looks like now. Details next.
Broken windows and half-ruined walls. This is how the administrative building of the ELEKTRONMASH plant looks like after radar attacks and arson. Therefore, it was decided to sell the enterprise at an auction. The starting price is a little more than $2.5 million.
We are going to monitor the course of this auction on Friday in order to stop breaking this state-owned enterprise.
The journalists are shown the assembly workshop of ELEKTRONMASH. Earlier, several thousand employees used to work here in 2 shifts, says former employee Halina Zhigaluk. The woman has been working here for over 40 years.
Microcircuits, resistors, capacitors, transistors. We were engaged in production and soldering of these plates here.
The ELEKTRONMASH plant was founded back in 1965. It was the largest Soviet manufacturer of the computer systems, TV sets, electronic cash registers, etc. But the USSR collapsed and the technology evolved. The industrial giant hasn't managed to keep up with the competition. Now only a few workshops are operating. They carry out small orders, for example, produce holders for elevators.
Various parts of mechanical production are manufactured here. More than 50 people do this job. These are orders for the manufacturer of various metal parts. They are processing and electroplating. There are large orders from the Kyiv subway because the subway cars are equipped with our power units. So far everything is frozen. Negotiations are underway.
139 employees out of 10,000 keep working at ELEKTRONMASH. Over the past few years, the enterprise has accumulated more than 5 million hryvnias of wage arrears. That is a little more than $190,000. Privatization is said to be the only way to save the situation.
A lot of state-owned enterprises, of which there are 3,000 left in Ukraine, are living their last days. And even at this enterprise, if an investor had been attracted earlier, he could have retained most of the main production, high-tech chip manufacturing, and so on.
The State Property Fund plans to raise the price of ELEKTRONMASH at least 3 times. Under the terms of privatization, the new owner must pay off debts and guarantee social protection to employees, and, if possible, develop the production process. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Svetlana Sich, UATV News.
Fine or confiscation. The police can fine drivers for driving with a foreign registration of a car. It goes about the used vehicles produced not earlier than 5 years ago, and which as of December 31st, 2020, were in the customs regime of temporary import or transit. The sum of a fine varies from $320 to $6,500 US. Besides, a driver who has not cleared a car can be deprived of his license for a period of 1 year. The grace period lasted 180 days, during which more than 66,000 cars were legalized. That's all for today. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages. Stay healthy and take care of yourself.